Welcome to Get Even, the podcast where Even co-founders myself, Ellen Sullivan, and Dr. Nora Kozlowski sit down with extraordinary women who've been there and done that in the world of business. Get Even is your backstage pass to their lived experiences, raw insights, personal stories, and the realities of their success. So whether you're looking for inspiration, practical advice and skills, or a peek behind the curtain of what it really takes to thrive, this is the podcast for women who are ready to go further. It's time to get even. Welcome back to the Get Even podcast. I'm Ellen Sullivan, co-founder of Even, and today we're chatting with Bobbi Mahlab AM. Bobbi is an incredibly successful woman. She's the founder and chair of Mahlab, a globally awarded communications agency, and she's the co-founder of Mentor Walks, an international mentoring movement connecting senior women leaders with aspiring talented women. Today, I'm going to talk to Bobbi about what good mentoring looks like, how to build a powerful network that's career-changing, and I'm going to understand her leadership style and the leadership practices she swears by to create real impact. Bobbi's a journalist turned entrepreneur, and she's spent decades building businesses and communities that support women's leadership and career progression. Her insights are invaluable. She serves on multiple boards, and she's also a strong advocate for gender equality in business and media. In 2020, she was appointed a member of the Order of Australia for her contribution to women, publishing, and philanthropy. Let's get into today's chat with Bobbi. Lovely to see you today, Bobbi. Thank you for joining us.
Great pleasure.
So, look, you've achieved so many different things, but I'm really interested to start this conversation through the lens of you as the co-founder of Mentor Walks, meeting so many incredible women by co-founding Mentor Walks. And so, in its simplest sense, how do you conceptualize mentoring? What does good mentoring look like from your perspective?
So I think a great mentor is someone who asks terrific questions, is a great listener, and someone who understands that their role is to facilitate a conversation, not be the conversation. So a great mentor, through the questions they ask, will help the mentee think differently, reframe, ask themselves questions, and sometimes move to action. So I think really the role of a mentor is to help the mentee see things differently, ask questions they may have not, suggest to themselves things that will help. So your role is, sometimes it's to provide solutions and introductions and all of those sorts of things, but it's really to guide the mentee to understanding things for themselves.
Do you have any, as a mentor yourself, are there any kind of tried and true kind of questions that you will go to, at least to kick things off or to help go a little bit deeper or kind of to get beyond that surface level?
Yes. I'm a great believer in the power of the open question. I started my career as a journalist, and I think it taught me how to ask questions well. And I think sometimes what it helps people to understand is if you ask an open question, it invites a whole lot of stuff. Whereas if you ask a specific question, you will only get a very specific response. So when, if I think about myself at Mentor Walks, when I'm leading a group, I will, there'll be usually 3 people in the group in addition to myself, sometimes 2. And we'll start by saying, how about you go first? Tell us your name and where you work and tell us what you're thinking about. And that will invite them to say, well, my name is X, I work here, and I'm thinking at the moment a lot about how I get my next promotion, or I'm thinking a lot about this manager I have that I cannot seem to develop a good rapport with. So, sometimes And I do it when I'm interviewing people for jobs as well.
Mhm.
I'll say, tell me your story or tell me about yourself. And it's interesting in itself how they respond. Sometimes they say, well, what do you mean like that? Where would you like me to start? And sometimes they just start. But it gives people an easier way into a conversation, I find, and often solicits information that you may not, in a place you might have started. And then, of course, the great thing to do is say, tell me more.
Yeah.
And they
More.
will. Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that "tell me your story." I think it's such a welcoming approach to say, "Tell me your story," because I think people will typically talk about their professional lives in a mentor relationship, but "tell me your story" really helps kind of connect all those different parts, your work, your life, your leadership. It's a very open, welcoming way to to kick off that mentoring relationship. It must be thousands of women now that you will have met through mentor walks. And they talk about their careers through mentor walks. And I'd love to understand, what are those patterns that you see again and again? I think, considering the what's being discussed in the media at the moment and what's happening in the world of work right now, I think I would love to hear your perspective on the patterns you see again and again, what's consistent, and maybe, is there anything changing at this point in time?
Yeah. The question that we get the most, and after every event we hold, we
Mm,
survey the mentees.
mm,
And the question or comment most often is the response, I thought I was the only one.
yeah,
And it breaks my heart. And
yeah.
it is perennial in every city, in every country that we work in. And it is this sense of women, the revelation when they find out that the problem that they've got or the question they've got or the insecurity they've got is
Mhm,
actually so common. And it's that sense of isolation that they think they're the only one. In all the hundreds of conversations and thousands of conversations I've had, is almost, it would possibly be never that you are the only individual to have experienced a certain situation. And I think that once you understand that you're in a community of shared experience and that many, many other people have experienced what you've experienced, and you're not alone, it is an enormous relief. But
mhm,
there is something about us that thinks we are the only one, and that stops us from going and talking to people about it or seeking help or understanding that help exists. And so that is an extremely common attribute or conversation. The imposter syndrome is
mhm,
another one that
mhm.
never ceases to play its card. I think most people suffer from it. I don't think it's just a women thing either. But I do think it tends to affect women probably more often for longer. But that imposter syndrome, that you think you don't have what it takes to do something, and that stems from a confidence question and so forth, that is without question the perennial. And then contextually, in a hybrid workforce, some of the questions that are coming up are about achieving visibility in a hybrid workplace. We know now that the workforce structurally is changing as a result of technology and economics and geopolitics now. So how that is affecting people's on an individual basis is coming up. But the two, I think, and also I think the question that relate to career development about how do I position myself the best for the next opportunity? Often what comes up as well is the juggle between caring responsibilities and your investment in your career and your investment in your personal life, whether it's people or passions that you want to pursue, and how you navigate that. That is also something that comes up a lot.
Yeah. And, like, even that moment where you realize, I don't have to be alone, I don't have to navigate this by myself, it allows you to think, "Oh, so then what could be?" Because
Hmm.
when you feel so isolated, you feel trapped, and it opens everything up a lot more about what could be possible when you're not
Yeah,
alone.
absolutely. And also there's the tips and techniques and tricks. And, I remember when my kids were small, someone said, just buy all the socks the same so you don't have to spend time matching them. I thought that was, that was worth a Nobel Prize. It was such a
You just
great
changed my
tip.
life. Listen, you've just used my
So, but no, there is a lot to share about how you can do things, and also just to know that sometimes you just need to muddle your way through, and that's everyone. I have a personal absolute pet hate against the term work-life balance. I
Yeah.
think
Tell
it's
us more. Tell us
complete BS. I think
more.
it sets people up to fail. I think there's no such thing as balance, and it's about, understanding what you need at a particular amount of time. And it's why conversations around flexibility are so much more useful than any suggestion of balance.
Yeah.
And yeah, I
The
don't know who it
balance
came up.
sets up a like, that's where we should be aiming for, and that's not what it's about, is it? It's
No.
about what's happening this week, what's happening this month, what's happening this year,
Yeah.
and what can flex.
Yes. Yes.
How do you think, in regards to flexibility as well, do you think it's also just a definition of boundaries, whether they're personal, whether they're work related, whether they're teams related, that sometimes we're not talking about the boundaries of stuff and that might help flexibility as well?
Yeah, sure. I think sometimes it takes some courage to raise those things in the workplace, particularly in corporate workplaces. I'll give you an example from my own business, which is, we're not a corporation, we're a mid
Mhm,
sized business. But we have a terrific CEO who dropped her small kids at school, and
mhm,
she ran a company meeting twice a week at 9, and she
mhm.
really struggled to get there and on time. And I just said to her, "Why don't you hold it at 9:30 and take the stress out?" And she went, "I can do that." And I'm like, "You're the CEO, you can do that." And so she did it, and it's taken the stress out, and the meetings run beautifully. So I think when you're leading teams, you have that ability. Even if you're not leading, you can suggest to people that work better for these reasons if we do this. So I think sometimes people are hesitant to ask and to make suggestions. But sometimes I think we're really surprised by what comes out of it. So is it setting boundaries? Sometimes, but is it working out a better way that works for everyone, for a better outcome for everyone? That too. So I do think that sometimes we're reluctant to think about what's possible, and that
Yeah.
small changes can make a big difference.
Yeah. We were talking about mentoring and what good mentoring looks like. And so that naturally takes me to kind of networking. And so
Mhm.
I'd love to understand, what's the difference between a network that is pleasant, which I think, all of us surround ourselves, or hopefully surround ourselves with quite a pleasant network, compared to one that is quite career changing. It's a powerful network then if it's career changing. And what would that look like in practice from your perspective?
Okay, I might introduce something else to this
Yeah.
as well, which is women are very reluctant to do what they call networking. They see
Mm,
it as selling. And I often talk to people about what it what building your network is actually building your community, and it's
mhm,
about showing up and going into environments where you're genuinely curious about people
yeah,
and want to meet them without any sort of distinct outcome other than you might be constructive people in each other's lives, right? And also the understanding that most people, in fact, almost all people, are slightly uncomfortable when you walk into a room and you don't
mhm,
know anyone, or maybe only know one person. It's a shared experience. Only the most extroverted people love that. The rest of us, it's like you have to take a deep breath and go in and
yeah,
strike up conversations with people you don't know. And in my experience, when you do that, it almost always leads to fantastic knowledge and
mhm,
introductions and those sorts of things. What a powerful network to me looks like is one, having people in my world who I can learn from,
mhm,
having people in my world who can help me with things that are important to achieve or further or whatever, to having people who, if I've got a question, they're people I can go to and say, what would you do here? What do you think about this? What questions would you ask? So a powerful network is a network of people who you can help and who can help you on a whole range of things. What a powerful network is not is just some people going out, as you said, and having nice coffees together, and sometimes sharing the everyday can be good, but It's really people who help you with things that you're working with and vice versa. And to me, a powerful network is entirely reciprocal. And by reciprocal, I don't mean that you're helping each other with the same things,
Mhm.
but it's an understanding that you are forces for good in each other's
Yeah.
world. And we have at every Mental Walks event, part of our introduction and script is that good women help good women. And you do it because it's the right thing to do. And everyone needs help. The problem is not everyone asks for it,
Yeah.
right? But if you take that abundant kind of position and say that good people help good people and it's part of being a good human, that's what you do, it opens up a whole different way of being.
Like, how would you help people understand that if you're, say, a more junior person and you're engaging with a more senior person? And so it might be a more like formal sponsorship
Yeah.
arrangement, but even if it's in more of a mentoring space, how could someone who's earlier in their career still think about how that's reciprocal?
Oh, well, I love that question because um, one of the things that I always encourage people to do, because it doesn't happen enough, you're helping them because you really want them to succeed, right? You want
Mhm.
them
Yeah.
to, and and so when they tell you what has happened as a result of that conversation or that input or whatever it is, so that you understand that you're having an impact, that's how they can thank you. So,
Mhm.
if I, let's say I have a conversation with someone and then a very black and white example would be 3 months later they get the promotion that they wanted because of some of the questions you've helped them frame or things they've gone on to do. That's one thing. But another one might be I'm really, just to let them know I'm really thinking differently as a result of our conversation and I appreciate it. But you would be surprised to hear how many mentors will say that they don't get any feedback or any reciprocity of any sort from the people they help, right? And it's just about being gracious.
Mhm.
And it doesn't make you help people more or less, but it makes the fact that you are kind of, you know, supporting people
Yeah.
even
You're
more
invested in their
worthwhile.
journey, aren't you? As a
You
mentor,
Yeah,
you
that's
invest in
exactly.
you know what's going on.
Yeah,
Even if
that's
nothing's changed, that's okay.
yeah. No, you're absolutely right. You are investing in their journey. And uh, I cannot express how many times we've got about 850 mentors in the Mental Walks
Mhm.
global network now. How many times when one of their mentees contacts them and says, "You'll never guess what's happened," or whatever, and they are thrilled, and they'll send it to us, and
Yeah,
we're thrilled, right?
yeah.
Because everyone wants to make a positive impact. So getting that feedback is terrific.
It's not a waste of their time. They do wanna hear they wanna hear how things are going for you. So
Yeah.
yeah, I love that's a amazing insight because I think so many people can tell themselves they're so busy, they're so senior, they've got so much going on. They wanna hear how things are going.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah. So you've worked with like senior leaders all across the world. You're working with them day in, day out. And so I would love to understand, when you look at women who have built that real influence, that real power, that decision-making power, what are they doing differently? Or what have they done through their careers that you would say is different?
So I think really effective leaders have a very clear sense of what they're good at
Mm-hmm.
and what they need to bring to work collectively around that. So, I'm very clear on the things I'm great on and I'm really clear on the things that I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
So I will very quickly bring in people with me who are good at the things that I'm not. So what I think a really great leader does is they understand their own strengths. And I think the best leaders I've seen are also collaborative.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is where women often play. They are people who are eminently curious and will ask questions and seek input from others. They don't necessarily feel that they need to have all the answers, but what they need to do is ask good questions.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think really good leaders have what I call peripheral vision, which is that they're not focusing on their patch like this, they're focusing on their patch like this. So
Mm-hmm.
noticing things that are happening either on a global or trends and various other things that where they see the headwinds, the tailwinds, the broader context. So those are some of the attributes, I think, of really great leaders, and they know how to empower others. So
Mhm.
I think a really great leader is someone who elevates others and who doesn't feel that they have to outshine, that,
Mhm.
sometimes there's always that big question about charismatic leaders versus the quieter leaders. And there are a lot of studies to show that the quieter leaders are actually often the most effective over time
Mhm.
in a sustained way. And I think what great leaders do is they build other great leaders, and they have a sense of their own ego and keeping it in check. And one of the great things that was clarified for me not that long ago is that some people, I think, are very motivated by impact. Some
Mhm.
people are very motivated by power.
Mhm.
And that really does shape how some individuals operate as leaders. And I think it's a distinction that it's really, for me personally, it's helped me understand a lot of things. And when I've watched how other people are operating and what's the best way to work with them or not.
I fully agree with you. Like, these are the types of leaders that we need, right? These are, and it's not just because having a greater impact is the right thing to do. It's actually, being more collaborative, is it actually has a bigger impact on the bottom line.
But I do think, particularly in corporate environments, what really great leaders do is that, let's say if you're presenting to the board, instead
Hmm.
of doing the whole presentation yourself, you bring in your key people who have done
Yeah.
the work and you give them the opportunity to do it, right? And it's things like that I think really make a difference. And to be able to give people opportunities where they stretch, where they learn, yeah, I think that you share it and you bring them up.
Yeah.
If there's one thing I'm really pleased about in my world, it's the people I've enabled. That's the thing that really gives me more satisfaction than anything else.
I thought that was a really nice practical example you shared there about how, you know, bring people into a board meeting. Are there other kind of those small, like, small tricks from kind of how you see yourself as a leader? Like, what are small practical things that you do, that that you would like to see other leaders do?
So I don't think this one is small, but I think that it's really worth speaking about is, as a leader, I see my role as helping other people be successful
Mhm.
and making sure they understand that I think that's my role,
Mhm.
and that's pretty rare. Right.
Mhm.
So I'll give you an example. When I moved into the chair position of my company,
Mhm.
and a fantastic woman took over as CEO. From the outset, I made it clear to her that my main job was to make sure she was successful. And it still is, right? And so the decisions I make about when to get involved or whatever are all about, is it going to help her
Mhm.
be as superb in her job as she can be, right? And what I've come to understand is that not many people do that, right? Because if she succeeds, I succeed, right?
Mhm.
You know, if she succeeds, the business succeeds, which means I succeed, right? It's as simple as that. So, and I think often in teams, people don't understand. They think it's a zero sum game,
Mhm.
or, there's I come from an abundance framework, which is that if the organization will do well, if we all do well. I think that's the difference.
Yeah, I think I mean, this is the key kind of leadership transition that so many people need to make as they move up, right? It's that your success will come through the success of your team, the success of your people. But I think it feels very authentic as you describe that. It feels like that you truly mean it. It's not just something that sounds good on a podcast, right? You can see that is how you live your leadership, right? Like, you're thinking about it in such a big way. And I'd love to be able to see more leaders absolutely doing that, because you're right, it is rare to think of it through that lens. We're almost at time, Bobbi, and so I would love to just throw a few quick questions at you. We
Sure, hit me
we
with them.
can't we can't miss the opportunity to ask these, and hopefully these can be asked answered quickly. So, I mean, one question I'd love to understand is, what's the best career decision you're glad you made?
There are two. One
Yeah.
is that 15 or 16 years ago, EY had a program for entrepreneur winning women in Asia Pacific that they were just starting. I went to a lunch, was given the brochure and said, you should apply. And I spent 9 months with it sitting on my desk thinking my business isn't big enough. I'm all the things I am and I'm not and whatever. And finally I applied and was offered a position, and being part of that global network and meeting all those people really changed my world. And so applying for those things and applying for leadership or other things, I think is really important. And we all tell ourselves so many reasons why we shouldn't. And in every case, you should, right?
Yeah.
And then so my answer one is just take opportunities like that and go for it, and know that so often for awards and every other things, people always think someone's applied once. Often they've applied multiple times. I was a judge for the Telstra Businesswoman of the Year. I can't tell you how many people applied year and year again. So
Well, that's good
yeah,
to
most
understand
people
that.
don't know that, but it's
Yeah.
really important to know. So apply. And
Yeah.
many times. The other thing that in my career that I'm pleased that has been a game changer is in the year before last, I applied and was offered a fellowship at Harvard, where I moved lock, stock and barrel to Cambridge, Massachusetts, and I went back to university for a year to invest in my own learning for a year. And that was really one of the best decisions I've ever made. And it was a gift to be able to do it. And it's only because I've got such great leaders in my Mahlab business and in Mentor Walks and great co-founder that I was able to do that. But to take time to invest in yourself, to get yourself to the next stage, whatever that is for you, I think is really important. And there are certain times in your life you can do that. And when they
Yeah.
come, when you can configure it, do it. Yeah.
They're great career decisions. They sound like they had such a massive impact.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
All right, let's move to the next one then. And so then what's one habit that's helped you most as a leader?
Almost every day of my
Mhm.
life as a leader, I ask myself the question, what can only I do and what can I delegate? And I think that's profoundly important. Yeah. What can only I do, and which it means what's the best use
Mhm.
of my time versus
Mhm.
what I can ask or encourage other people to do. So
Amazing.
yeah,
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you, Bobbi. Thank you so much. There's so many rich insights in there. We're delighted that our podcast listeners can gain so much from this conversation with you. We really appreciate what you've contributed. Thank you for joining the Get Even podcast.
it's a pleasure, and good on you for what you're doing with Even.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for listening today. I'm Ellen Sullivan, co-founder of Even. Find out more about Even at even-careers.com and tune in next week to hear from another amazing woman in business.